Okay, with areas. Area of a rectangle is the easiest thing to probably remember. Hopefully everyone knows it.
Side by side, right?
Close. Length times width. It doesn't matter which is the length and which is the width. You just multiply the two sides. Now, if you had a parallelogram is simply a rectangle that's been tipped. If you've got a parallelogram like this, if you were to cut this piece off right here and then move it over here, what would it form? A rectangle. So the area of a parallelogram is the same thing as a rectangle. It's length times width, but they don't call it length times width. The length they call a base in a parallelogram, but they're the same thing. And the width they call the height, which is the same thing. Now remember this, heights always have to be perpendicular. Sometimes people get messed up like this. If you see this is 8 inches and this is 4 inches and this is 5 inches. A lot of times people go too fast, they'll go 8 times 5. The height is how tall it is, which would be 4. This is a slant height, so you don't even use that. Then also, if you took any triangle and duplicated it and tipped it upside down, it would form a parallelogram, right?
Yeah.
The area of this piece is the length times width, but in a parallelogram we call it base times height. But you really don't have a whole parallelogram. How much of it do you have? Half. So that's why you divide it by 2. Okay? So, those are the basic ones. Area of a parallelogram is just base times height. Area of a triangle is base times height divided by 2. Area of a square. You guys put their iPads away. A square is just, you could just go length times width. But also a square, all the sides are the same. So if this is a side and that's a side, it would be side squared. That's the same thing as length times width. It's just they're the same, so you could just square it. Okay? And a rhombus is a parallelogram, so that's just base times height. The two on a trapezoid, you've done this one before, but it's been a while. A trapezoid is just like a triangle where the top's been cut off. So in a triangle, it's the base times the height divided by 2. In a trapezoid, it's basically the same thing, except you don't have one bases, you have 2 bases, right? So what it is it's the bases added together times the height divided by 2. The base plus the base times how tall it is, and then divide by 2. Now in your book, if you look it up, they would write it like this: 1/2 height B1 plus B2. It's the same exact thing. To me, it's just easier to do it this way on a calculator. Okay? When you take something times a half, it's the same thing as divided by 2. Then, for a kite, on a kite, if you draw in the diagonals, it forms 4 what? 4 right triangles. So the one way you could do it is find the area of this triangle and then double it, because they're the same, in the area of this triangle and double it, and then add them together. Add all 4 triangles together. But the easier way is this. This one you've probably never used before. It's just the diagonals multiplied together. They say D1 times D2 divided by 2. Now in the book, again, instead of saying divided by 2, they write it like this. Area is 1/2 D1 times D2. Okay? So remember that. I have a formula sheet. I should give you copies today so you have all these on there. I'll do that after we go through this. Now, this formula also works on a rhombus. So a rhombus, you got 2 possibilities. You can just go base times height, but if they give you the diagonals, you can use this formula on a rhombus also. The diagonal times the diagonal divided by 2. So that's what we're doing today.
Yes.
So in this picture, they have a bunch of added stuff here, but all they want is the area of parallelogram ABCD. So they have extra stuff that we don't even need in there. What do we do to find the area of that parallelogram? What times what? 9 times 20. And it'd be 180. None of these have labels on them, I don't think. Well, some of them do. Remember, if it's got a label, you got to put a label. If this were in inches, we would label this. Area is always squared. Inches squared. If it doesn't have a label like this, you don't have to label it. But if you want to get in the habit of always labeling it and there's nothing in there, just put U squared for unit squared. Now we do have some problems where you've got to find the area of the composite figure. So if you found the area of this whole thing right here, it's made up of a parallelogram and a triangle. So you just split it up into 2 things. We already found that this area was 20 times 9, it's 180. Here, we've got a right triangle. So you got to go base times height divided by 2. Now, remember base and height got to form a 90. So the 15 could be the base, which means this would be the height, but we don't know it. So, if this is 20, this is also 20, right? If you know 2 sides of a right triangle, you can find the third. Pythagorean theorem. So you got to square these 2, and then are you going to add them or subtract them? Subtract, because you're looking for a leg. 20 squared minus 15 squared, and then you square root it. So this turns out to be 13.2. So now to find the area of this, you'd go 15 times 13.2. Don't forget to divide by 2. That's the thing that most people forget to do. And you get 99. So the entire area of this whole thing, you'd add 180 and 99 together. 279. 279 units squared. So, rewriting formulas. The formula of a triangle is base times height divided by 2. We're going to rewrite that formula in terms of h. All that means is get the h by itself. So you want to get rid of the b and the 2. Which one would you get rid of first? It really doesn't matter which one you get rid of first, I guess. But the easiest thing to do is get rid of the bottom number. Since it's divided by 2, multiply by 2. And you end up with 2a equals b times h. So then what do you do? Divide by b. So 2 areas divided by b will give you the height. Okay? So, the simple ones, area of a rectangle is length times width, 32 units squared. Shh. Area of a triangle is base times height. Base and height always got to form a 90. So 16 times 9, and don't forget to divide by 2. A lot of times people forget that on the triangles. So that would be 72 units squared. This one, they give us the area, and we want the height. Well, it's a parallelogram, so 6 times h has to equal 60. So what's h got to be? 10. So, now the trapezoids. Here they've got the trapezoid in a coordinate. The area of a trapezoid is the height times the bases added together. That's what B1 and B2 means. Divided by 2. So when it's drawn like this, it's kind of nice. If it were at angles, you'd have to use the distance formula. But since it's not, this base right here, you could just count. It's 7 units long. This one is 1, 2, 3, 4. And the height you could count also. The height is always the distance between the two bases. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So, the area of this is the height times the bases added together. 7 and 4 is 11. Divided by 2, and you get 33 units squared. Rhombus. A rhombus is a parallelogram, so you could just go base times height, but sometimes they don't give us that. Now this rhombus is ABCD. And they threw this on here to confuse you, right? You don't need it. It's nothing we need right there. So, to find the area of a rhombus, we don't know the base or the height, so don't forget you can use this formula. The diagonals multiplied together divided by 2. So this diagonal is 24. This one is 32. And then don't forget to divide by 2. And it'd be 384 units squared. So, again now, if they gave us a composite figure and they wanted the area of this whole thing, you would split it up into the rhombus, which we just did. We already know that's 384. And then find the area of that triangle. Again, a triangle is base times height divided by 2. This would be the base. This is the height, which you don't know. But you can figure it out. Now this is a 2-step one. We can figure out what this line is right there because this is a right triangle. What would you do to figure that out? Yep. 12 squared and 16 squared, would you add them or subtract them? Add them because you're looking for hypotenuse. 12 squared plus 16 squared, and then square root it. And you get 20. So then I can find this by using the Pythagorean theorem again. 20 squared, 19.2 squared, but now I would have to subtract them because you're looking for a leg. And then square root it. And you get 5.6 for the height. So the area of this triangle is 19.2 times 5.6 divided by 2. Base times height divided by 2. It is 53.76. So you would have to add that on to that part. Would be 437.76 units squared. If you found the area of this whole piece right there. So again, trapezoids, it's just the height times the bases added together, 14 and 6 is 20, divided by 2. Quick way to do that is you can just cancel the 2. It'd be 7 times 10, would be 70 units squared. On a rhombus, if you don't know the base and height, take diagonal times diagonal. 8 and 8 is 16. And then again, don't forget, divide by 2. So that's 176 units squared. A kite is the same as a rhombus. You can just take the diagonal, which would be 18, times the diagonal, which they give us the whole length there is 40. And again, don't forget, you got to divide by 2. And it's 360 units squared. So, I'm going to show you a couple of those composite ones that you're going to have to do.
This instant. What do you do?
I did not carry this morning.
Look at Kelly, she didn't see it.
Okay, we're going to do page 376.
I'm excited to do math. There's added lines.
So, I just want to point out a few things. When you do this, this 21 is here to show you the height of it. Here, they put the height on the outside. This 4 is just to tell you the height. It's not part of the triangle. It's just the base times the height. The 7 is just there to mess you up. You don't need that because you're just finding the area of the triangle. When you get to these are the composite figures. Well, this one isn't. It's a rhombus. So that's just diagonal times diagonal divided by 2. Here you've got a rectangle and a triangle. Find them both, add them together. 2 trapezoids. So just find the area of one and then double it because they're the same size. A square or a rectangle and a trapezoid. Find them each and add them together. So these have labels in them, so you do have to label these. These up here don't, so you don't need to label them if you don't want to.